What is up, everybody? I'm William, and today I'm going to be giving you some advice on how you can select your first loadouts in Project Breach. This advice is going to be designed to give beginning players some guidance on which loadouts they should be directed towards and trying out as they learn the game. I'm going to give you 3 loadouts that I recommend for newer players. I'll also tell you why I recommend them, and I'm also going to mention a couple loadouts that I think new players should stay away from until they learn the game a little bit more. The first loadout that I'm going to recommend is 𝕃𝕚𝕚𝕚𝕾𝕒. The reason that I recommend 𝕃𝕚𝕚 for new players is because I feel like this kit, as a whole, will make sense to players even if they're not familiar with Project Breach necessarily. The main gadget is simple yet very important. It's just 3 adrenalines that regenerates your health when you receive damage and gives you a slight speed boost as well. It's got a really solid gun option with that F401S, and it's got nice scopes that you can choose from, and it also has frag grenades, and anybody who's ever played pretty much any FPS ever knows exactly how those work. But the biggest reason I recommend 𝕃𝕚𝕚 is because this is a loadout that you can grow with. This loadout can be played at any skill level in Project Breach, from beginners and all the way up to pros. And as you learn the maps more and get better as a player, you'll only find 𝕃𝕚𝕚 more and more useful. The next loadout I'm going to recommend is 𝕃𝕚𝕚, and the reason I recommend 𝕃𝕚𝕚 is because this is one of the most self-reliant loadouts in the game. You can do a lot of different things all on your own. This loadout can stun enemies with the breach charges, or you can breach silently with the wall charges. This loadout also has a great gun in that 𝕃𝕚𝕚𝕚𝕚, so its frag potential is very high as well. Now, one thing to keep in mind with 𝕃𝕚𝕚 is that you will be playing as a hard breach operator, and that means that you do need to work with your team. If you are attacking enemies that has an exterior wall, you might need to hang around outside, scout for your teammates, and put yourself in a position where you can use your utility. Sometimes an entire strat will rely on you opening a wall while using the 𝕃𝕚𝕚 loadout, so keep that in mind. But with that said, as a solo queue player, there's not many loadouts that can do as much as 𝕃𝕚𝕚. Moving on, the next loadout that I'm going to recommend is 𝕃𝕚𝕚. The reason that I recommend 𝕃𝕚𝕚 is that it falls into that scout loadout category, and its utility, its gadget, can help new players who are lacking in some situational awareness that comes with time in Project Breach. With 𝕃𝕚𝕚, you get 2 𝕃𝕚𝕚𝕚𝕚s that you can deploy over tops of doors, under windows, or in hallways. They'll pretty much stick to anything, and you must click the 𝕃𝕚𝕚𝕚 button again once you deploy to use the camera. This can be very useful to scout enemies for yourself and for your teammates before you decide to push or attack them. Keep in mind that once you use the 𝕃𝕚𝕚𝕚s, you can pick them up again if you want to. 𝕃𝕚𝕚 also has 2 breach charges, so that you can play more tactically once you scout enemies' positions. The reason that both of these gadgets are so useful for new players is that they can give you more awareness around the maps and play tactically. As a new player, you don't know where enemies usually are in many situations, so getting these gadgets out and allowing them to give you more awareness about your enemies can be the difference between you living and dying and being prepared for a potential gunfight. 𝕃𝕚𝕚 also has a very strong SMG as well, so once again, we've not only got great gadgets, but also a good gun with high fragging capability as well. Now let me tell you a couple loadouts that I think you should stay away from. Firstly, I'm going to recommend that you stay away from 𝕃𝕚𝕚, at least at first. 𝕃𝕚𝕚 can be very strong, but for a new player who doesn't have very much map knowledge, it's not very likely that you are going to get much use out of 𝕃𝕚𝕚. This loadout is strongest when you know the maps and know where enemies are likely to be. You have high fragging capability to your advantage to get very good kills or effectively arrest enemies to avoid losing points. But a lot of things have to go right, and you have to be very knowledgeable in order to make that happen. The next loadouts that I recommend is to avoid using shields at all costs. It might seem like a good idea to pick a loadout as a new player that you can be behind a shield and be protected, but there's a lot of weaknesses to shields in the game nowadays, and you're not going to be learning some of the valuable mechanics that you need to progress as a player. Playing loadouts with shields isn't like playing other loadouts, so I think you should learn the base loadouts first and then move on to loadouts with shields as you get more experienced. Okay, that's going to do it for my recommendations as far as loadouts for newer players. The last thing I want to say here is to make sure you're having fun. The beauty of Project Breach is in the variety of loadouts and the different playstyles that they all have. Make sure you're trying different stuff out. Yes, I made recommendations to you here that I think will help click in the very beginning, but you shouldn't be only playing 1 or 2 loadouts for every game. Try different stuff out and see what clicks for you. When you find those loadouts that you really gel with, Project Breach becomes much more enjoyable.